What is up, everybody? I'm Sean.
Amped up. And we're the Block Bros. That synced up the best, I think, that time.
I don't think it did. I really don't. I don't think it did.
Oh my god.
Shit, I was not expecting that. Hello, everybody, and welcome to an episode of your least favorite podcast, Block Bros, an indie game podcast. Tonight, I'm just gonna jump right into it. We have a guest. So I don't want him to feel impatient and like we're ignoring him. So I'm going to bring him on right away. You already know me. You know Tom. And if you've listened to the episode before, you know our guest. Let's bring him in. Everybody give it up for Damon Devin. What's up, buddy?
That's right. The secret third nefarious block bro.
we keep him downstairs in case we need him.
Yeah, it's like the weird uncle that comes by sometime, on the podcast. I'm just playing.
We were like, for once, the main character should be the redhead, so we got the blonde-haired stepchild.
That's fair. That's fair. These are all fair points. With that being said, the main reason we got Devin on the show today is because we're talking about one of I would presume your favorite games. You actually told me about this game. We're talking about Little Nightmares today, so that's exciting. But before we do that, we got to talk about our weeks. So whoever between you two, whatever one of you wants to go first, tell me about your week.
Yeah, it was good. My highlight was definitely when we all dressed as zombies and went out for that pub crawl. So that was definitely a good time. Your typical stuff. Like my favorite line that I keep using right now is Carolyn out of fucking context because of a dude's wife that was dancing just near us on a pole, and all he does, her husband, I
forgot about that,
and just goes,
Carolyn. I forgot about. I totally spaced that happened.
I'm like, of course that's her fucking name, Carolyn.
You could tell she was a little repressed.
But yeah, definitely a good night out on the town, and when there's like a whole shitload of people dressed as zombies and getting drunk, it makes it even better, So
definitely. What about you, Devin? What was your week like?
Well, yeah, besides, you having seen me at the pub crawl, I've been doing a lot of sleeping and self-loathing. So, yeah, just typical October festivities. I ate a whole bag of Kit Kats.
Were they at least like a flavor of Kit Kats?
Hell, it was the variety pack. If you haven't had the marshmallow Kit Kat, the Witch's Brew, best Kit Kat.
I will fight you on this one.
I know it's controversial.
No, my controversial Kit Kat. Oh my god, Kit Kat is the blueberry muffin Kit Kat.
Dude, strawberry Kit Kats. That's where
it's at. Strawberry?
Oh, come on.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's like the most normal of the rare Kit Kats.
I understand, but I still fucking love it. It might be the most normal, but I also love strawberry Pop-Tarts, so eat me. I don't know.
Yeah, that's bad. You're bad at this. You have all the flavors in the world to choose from, and you choose strawberry?
Fuck you, it's the most iconic Pop-Tart.
Shit. Mine, yeah, no, I had fun too. My week was literally a combination of both of what you said. As an unemployed full-time streamer, I did a lot of self-loathing and ate a lot of bad food. And I think mine was definitely the highlight was the zombie pub crawl though. I dressed as a dead streamer and had a riot of a time. Basically, my whole thing that I pulled out of it is if you ever want to see people just get absolutely nutty for no reason, bring a controller into public and pretend you're controlling them. They will. I had 100% success rate. Everybody went along with it. It was dumb as hell.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome to watch. My body hurt a lot after dancing for like an hour and a half straight, though. I will say, like, fuck that.
We were kicking it out there. We were having a great time, bro.
Yeah, I woke up the next day and my wrists hurt, and I could not think of a single reason why.
You don't remember? Never mind.
Right.
All right. Well, we're talking Little Nightmares tonight, guys. So who wants to take the intro to Little Nightmares?
Why don't you go ahead, Sean?
Well, fuck you. I will. Once I figure out where I put it.
Once I know how to introduce the game, we will introduce
So, Little Nightmares is a horror puzzle platformer. It was developed by, and I might say this wrong, so I apologize. Tarsier Studios. It was published by Bandai Namcom Entertainment, which I think is a pretty big company. When it was originally released to Windows, PS4, Xbox One on April 28th, 2017. But since then, from then till now, has made its way to the Switch and also Stadia, which I don't think exists anymore, does it? Didn't they get rid of Stadia?
Who cares?
Stadia.
It was a terrible concept. Or was that Lumia? It was Lumia or Stadia. I don't remember. One of them doesn't exist anymore.
If you're in
For
India,
now.
you're fucked.
now.
Like,
there was also plans to make this available on mobile port of winter of this year, actually. So it's still coming. There's a mobile port coming to iOS and Android as well. So yeah, but basically it's a horror puzzle platformer. And we'll talk about the storyline next. So let's get into that.
Storyline.
Now, someone else take the fucking storyline.
Devin, why don't you go ahead? I know you know a lot of the story aspects of this game.
Yeah. So in a similar fashion to a lot of other horror games, Little Nightmares takes the approach of having absolutely no dialogue and absolutely no reading. You know, in a lot of horror games, you'll typically figure out about the world through journal entries or, voicemail machines, depending on, what era the game is set in, it's really convenient and a lot of story games use it. But yeah, there is none of that at all in Little Nightmares. At the best, you'll see a painting on the wall that implies maybe something in the world. So it, in a neat way, it does take you through a sort of linear story. But at the same time, it leaves so much to the imagination that the world becomes larger than anything that the developers could have actually made by, being mostly in your head.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that entirely.
Yeah, like it's a really, really messed up story when you get into it. Like, I mean, the heavy implications of what you see in the game are really here's what you first see. You see a whole bunch of children in cells. And then what do you see? You see a kitchen and a whole bunch of meat and nowhere to get meat. And then you run through a whole bunch of people eating meat and you realize there are no children.
I think another thing that's just really important to the narrative is in this game you do play as a girl named Six. She's 9 years old and wears a bright yellow raincoat. And in classic horror fashion, you're non-combative, so it is in itself a stealth game where you have to utilize your skills and the environment to try to avoid massive grotesque monsters that are, like Tom said, probably not out for your best interests as you navigate this giant undersea vessel called the Maw. That's pretty much the gist of it, is that you have to solve puzzles and use your stealth to try to stay alive and see the end of this game. I think that about sums it up, right?
Yeah, essentially, I think you're just mostly at first you're trying to escape. It's kind of, in a way, it's like some intricacies are up to interpretation. There's one fan theory on this game that you're actually the daughter of the main final kind of entity in this game, which you see paintings of her right away, so it's not really a giveaway to give her away because you'll see her in the first scene of the game.
Yeah, also when you wake up from a dream, your dream was about her, so it is literally the first scene of the game.
Yeah, so she the theory is that you're the daughter of her and she cast you down for some reason. There's a lot of theories on that, but you do notice that there are paintings of a girl in yellow jackets covered up kind of where she is. So it's kind of cool that you can interpret so many things just from literally no actual story in this game in the story-esque way,
Yeah, a traditional story set. Devin said, the no dialogue, no environmental tellings, nothing comes out of the woodwork and tells you, hey, here's what happened here. It's kind of left for you to infer, which I think magnifies the horror genre more for this game. It makes it creepy, makes it atmospheric,
Yeah,
cool. Does anyone else have anything to say about the storyline before we move on to graphics?
I think that the story, in that it doesn't ask you to dig deeper into it, that it's just kind of there. allows players to decide how invested they want to be in the world. And I really like when a game tells you, enjoy me the way you want to. You can do one free use. You can do one playthrough of Little Nightmares, never pick it up again, and that's fine.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Multiple playthroughs, you can try to get all the the completion and stuff, but no matter what, you are going to have a full experience with the game that I think is going to stay with you.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that's what they intended, and I think they nailed that personally. Hell yeah. Well, let's move on to graphics and art.
Graphics and art.
Just so we're all on the same page, this is a live podcast, and we do show the game and ourselves every Tuesday on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch around like 10 to 11 p.m. is usually when we start. So if you want to see our pretty faces or the game we're talking about, make sure to come over to that or check out the VODs on YouTube. With that being said, I'm going to pull up the game, and we can talk about it. Tom or Devin, you guys can go first. Tom usually likes to go first with this, but I don't give a shit. One of you two.
Take it away, Tom.
Awesome. I really like the graphics in this. Unlike anything we've talked about, this is made in Unreal 4. So, like this isn't really like a pixelated game, but I mean, this game still stands out unlike any kind of like regular Unreal game you'd see. One of my favorite things probably I love seeing in this game is just she's like Six is like the only colored. There's other colored things in this game, but she's like the only brightly colored thing, and it adds so much to her. Like like you can infer that like she's almost like that light kind of in the darkness, even though like later on she gets a lot darker. But
Spoiler.
yeah, it's so cool to see, like, because most of this game is gray for the most part. Like you're on a metal ship, of course, but there's a lot of darker pastel effects. But I mean, what you see is beautiful, and I'm just talking background wise. I haven't gotten into monsters yet, which is like super grotesque. Some of the creepiest things you'll see crawling at you. I don't know. You guys want to talk about like some monsters in it? Like, who is your favorite out of all of them? I just want to.
Just in general, my favorite was the chef. The chefs really freaked me out. I didn't like them at all.
Yeah, they were one of my favorite too, because I wasn't that scared of them at first until I literally seen one like reach its hand under his face. So you realize that the chef is wearing a face over their face, and that like freaked me the fuck out. Like,
I think that there's a couple things that I'd like to talk about with how this game is made graphically that I haven't seen in a lot of other games. So it has a 2.5D platformer. So what that means, we talked about it before. Sorry, I forgot about this part in the game. I'm like,
this is right at the beginning. Like,
I made way too many jokes when I streamed this about the dude hanging himself. But yeah, no, it's a 2.5D platform, which we talked about before. It's if I can throw back to another episode, it has the same 2.5D. We explained it in Oxenfree. Essentially, it is a platformer that's played on a 2D plane with 3D elements. So that's the easiest way to explain it. If you know what we're talking about, just look it up. You definitely will understand after you see it. I failed art a million times and I get it, so you should be okay. But the thing that I thought was just so interesting about this game, other than the color scheme and the monsters and all that, which we will talk about in depth, I'm sure, in this episode, was the way that they designed it. Because when they started out the concept for how they wanted this game to look, they basically designed a dollhouse. And then they put you as the doll in the dollhouse, and they made it, that was the concept for it. And when you play the game, that's exactly how it feels, because you can't see too far to either side of you. You can see just enough to know that you're the character moving around on the screen and that you're in a room. But you don't know how close you are to danger because of that at all times. Like, you could open a door and all of a sudden there's an arm reaching you, or there might be something else on the other side. Like, and it really played up that aspect of it, which I loved about it. I haven't seen that in a lot of other games, and the way they described it in a lot of interviews was using like a quote unquote dollhouse camera, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
No, do you have any thoughts on that, Devin, or any thoughts on any of the graphics?
Yeah. Well, to expand upon your point of that dollhouse feeling, I think Tarsier really like nailed blending form and functionality in this game. In that they force you to be very small, right? Like that
Mm-hmm.
you are little is literally in the title, and that's kind of alien for the typical gamer. Like normally you're in some sort of power position, no matter what game you're playing, whether it's Doom or Minecraft. You are there to take control of the world you're in, and here you are not in control of anything. You have to crawl through vents. You have to jump on dumpsters. You have to pull a chair with your whole fucking body. You can't just open doors. You fall over pulling boards and planks, and when the camera shows you inside a vent, it's not first person perspective. It's not about you in the vent. It's about how much empty space there is around you and what could be in that darkness outside of the vent.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah.
I definitely say that too. To add to the little thing, this game has a great sense of scale. Like it said, you're very small in this game and everything does feel super huge. But even your enemies almost feel out of place in the sense of scale of this place, because it feels like it's built to regular human sized standards to get around, but even the enemies feel smaller than they would, which almost adds to the more weird grotesqueness of them, I think the first thing you see in this game, which always freaked me the fuck out, is just one long ass arm reaching at you, and oh my fucking spaghetti noodle arms, really?
That's
Really
terrifying.
fucks me up, man. At first, they did a really good job designing each enemy in this game, but yeah, how big everything feels comparatively to you most of the time is really what sets this apart from a lot.
Exactly. Yeah, and I found when I was doing my research about this game, because I played through the game, but every time we do an episode, we do research. We're not that bad at our jobs, we try.
Right.
So I was doing the research for this game, and I found an interview where they talked about the concept for the characters and why everything feels that way, why everything feels so weird. Is because they wanted it to feel like a stylistic approach from a child perspective. Like they wanted it to seem like everything was too big, too bloated, too grotesque, because that's how children kind of view the world. That the world is bigger, people are scarier, situations are scary when you don't know where you are, and the game really does a very good job of balancing that with the puzzles, the platforming, and the horror. It does a very good job of hitting every single point, but also keeping it feeling like you're literally a child on a ship where people are trying to eat you, essentially.
Yeah.
And I love that about it. I think they did an amazing job with the art because of that.
Yeah, the fact that it just implies so hard, just graphically wise. This, the graphics tell the story in this game. What you see is the story, and it implies everything so well, from the beginning to the end, what the hell is happening in this fucked up place. That it's really weird, but in a way, you can draw conclusions on this game, but it's imagine this, just going back to story-wise, is this game does not a word of story, but it heavily implies that these are kidnapped children taken from their home, and that literally people are sailing, to come and spend money to eat children. Cannibalism is ugh. It's such a fucked up feeling that graphics can put so much emphasis on a story,
Exactly. And no, 100%. And a fun little known fact about this game, that actually ties into exactly what you were talking about, is that there was okay, for Little Nightmares and Little Nightmares 2, there was whole teams of designers that worked on every single aspect originally, but the original concept arts for these games came from another game that the creator of what was the studio called, sorry, Tensera or something like that.
Tarsier.
Yeah, Tarsier. The original creator, he started making a game back when he first started called City of Metronome, and essentially it was Little Nightmares, except the kids were kidnapped to a city and they had to try to escape the city, and that's the whole thing, is they took that concept and made it into something else. That game actually never ended up getting finished, and they're still trying to decide if they're going to finish it or not. But the fact that the concepts were taken from another game and applied so beautifully to this game is just, it's really cool. That the kidnapped features and the cannibalism and all that kind of like plays into the next game was really cool, in my opinion. And I got to find that out today. So
Yeah.
just thought I'd share.
Yeah, I think somewhere in the first chapter of the game there's a secret area that you can climb to that has a picture of the protagonist from that unfinished game.
That's really fucking cool. I
Wow.
had no idea about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of like random secret areas in this game that I haven't like. Some of them are just like hard to find because like a lot of things kind of blend in this game, and you never like know where literally one is gonna be. Like it's kind of hard to distinguish for me sometimes. But when you do find like one and you find like kind of cool Easter eggs visually like that, it's really something cool to behold. You know.
I totally agree with that. The studio that also worked on this game worked on Little Big Planet for a while as well. So I got incredible Little Big Planet vibes when I was playing it because of like just your movement and like the camera angle. And I was trying to figure out why. And when I did the research today, I found that out. So I just thought I'd throw that in too. Like it just was bugging me for the longest time. Like it just reminds me of like that old Sony game. It's because originally they were a Sony exclusive studio that helped on Little Big Planet, and then they moved in and made Little Nightmares their first game.
Okay, but could you imagine them just sitting around and be like, so, you know what Little Big Planet could use? No, what? Cannibalism.
Like, body horror.
Yeah, like what?
Kids getting fucked up. Anyways, is anyone else have anything else to say about the art before we move on to the sound?
Something that I wanted to throw in, and I think Sean, you've heard me bring this up a lot. I tend to repeat myself pretty regularly. A design, I don't want to say like principle, but like a neat design aspect of this game that I think rings true with a lot of horror is part of what makes something scary is that it's kind of goofy. Like the reason that like say clowns or even like underwater monsters are kind of scary is because they're goofy. You don't imagine yourself getting killed by that. Like you look at a goblin shark and you're like, that's the ugliest, dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. Imagine dying to that. But then you do, and it's like it's humbling and it's grotesque. It's like, how did this shambling, awful, awkward thing beat me? And I think that Little Nightmares does a great job of making things scary without making them too cool to be scary.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. I never thought about it that way. I'm sure you told me that, but I've never personally had this thought enter my head.
No worries.
No thoughts in my head. Smooth brain. Hell yeah. Well, with that, let's move on to sounds and music.
Sounds and music.
I'm usually the go-to guy with this, but if anyone else has anything else to say beforehand, I basically just learned a lot about it today, so I'm just excited to share about it. That's all.
Well, you seem so excited. Then why don't you share, my friend?
Well, when I played it, I always thought the soundtrack was incredibly fitting, and the sounds, just like because there's no dialogue. There's no dialogue. There's no that's not necessarily true. There's no comprehensible dialogue, and there's no text or anything like that shows up to tell the story. So when we talk about how good the graphics are in a game like this, you are literally dependent on the fact that you also need good sound. At least in my opinion, that's what I believe. You can't if you're going to skimp on not having dialogue, not having voice actors, you need good sound, and this game had always killed it for me. It had immaculate sound. It was creepy. It was atmospheric. It was weird. Like there was a lot of sounds I didn't understand, like bangings and grumblings and sighing and huffing and just weird sounds that felt out of place but somehow felt in place at the same time. And when I was doing the research today, I looked it up, and one person made all the sounds in this game. Their name is Tobias Lilje. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Lilje. And they basically used their idea that they wanted it to sound really ambient and explorative moments of the game, like where you're finding what we talked about earlier, like a room that they didn't know about, or like an Easter egg, or where you're exploring the ship. It's very explorative. It feels like you're on an adventure. And then when you get into like a chase scene with a grotesque ass monster, it's really nightmarish and industrial and scary and intense. And I think they did an amazing job at that. And I found out that they used a bunch of weird like instruments and stuff to make this. Like they use like a bunch of acoustic instruments, like a music box, trombones, accordion, and vocals. And then they also compress their vocals and process them to make them sound like otherworldly and weird. So they used like metal plates and banged on them to make it sound like the ship, because you're on a ship, so like the metal hull and stuff, boat horns, pots and pans, like they use physical items to recreate the sounds. And I think that's something that you don't see in a lot of AAA titles. They'll just outsource it and be like, hey, just make this, or things sound like this. These are actually the sounds you're hearing. Like when you're in the kitchen, those are actual pots and pans. That's cool.
Yeah,
So I was
it's
just
like
really
how they
excited about
make
that.
sound design for movies and stuff, how they hire
Mhm.
people to do that, which is really, really cool and adds to, the sound. I mean, like, I know this game is coming to mobile. I would probably not recommend anybody play this game on mobile just because, like, the sound is about equal to this game. Like, if you're not playing with a headset, you're not truly experiencing this game. Like, honestly, like, one of the most terrifying sounds to me is right off of the bat that gets stuck in my head is the fucking sniffing the janitor does.
Oh my
Like,
god, yeah. Yeah.
oh my god. Like, that's like probably the scariest sound in the game, and you'll just be hiding and it'll get close to you, and all you hear is that just yeah,
Yeah.
like fucking,
Yeah.
and oh god, it gets into your soul, It's one of those sounds that in like horror games stays with you, like that classic, like like that classic machete sound. That this is another one that just will stay with you, And bravo for doing, the sound design right on this game.
Definitely. And I do know a different person designed, or a different team of people designed Little Nightmares 2 sound, which we may cover Little Nightmares 2 eventually. I just wanted to clarify that because finding this information was really difficult. So if you ever look up Little Nightmares, you're mostly going to get Little Nightmares 2 stuff. So just letting you know.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on the sound design or music, Devin?
Yeah. Well, I just like to say that it keeps with the theme of what I was talking about with the visuals, where each sound communicates something. Every part of the carcass of the maw is used. Like where the color of Six's jacket is so that you always know where the character is, and everything's muted in the background. The ambient sounds in this game, like you were saying, like the pots and pans moving around or the chains rattling, let you know where you are. And then the sounds of the electricity let you know that there's something there. The janitor sniffing lets you know that you're being hunted. There's no sound that's just there. Everything is purposeful. Everything is there to help create the world that you're in. Even the footsteps of Six,
Yeah.
they're different than everyone else's footsteps because Six is not only small, but Six is barefoot throughout this entire journey, which communicates a sort of vulnerability of the player character.
And to tie into that as well, anytime you hear noise come from Six that's not footsteps, like if they do anything, apparently those her like sounds were supposed to resemble like children's nursery rhymes, I guess, like the humming, or like just like the melodic pressure. That's apparently what they said in an interview about it. So I think that was ties in as well. Like you said, it was so purposeful. Everything that they created from the sound design was so incredibly purposeful and had a reason every single time, which I don't see in a lot of games, honestly.
Yeah. Another one of my favorite sounds in this game, like just relating back to it, is this subtle creaking in this game. It really gets that, it fits the visual wise of like, I know I didn't talk about it like really in the visuals, but this has that perfect ship swaying motion. So you immediately know you're in like the ocean, like on like some kind of ship vessel. It might not be clear if it's a ship. You just kind of figure that right away. You're on the Maw, which is kind of a ship in a sense, but not really. But it really conveys that well, not just through the visuals, but through the sound. It's just those slight like kind of creaking you would actually hear from a big metal ship like this, and it's just, every sound is haunting in this game, and it's perfectly done. So,
agreed. Does anyone else have any thing they want to add about the sound?
Just like an overall recap of the aesthetics, the visuals and the sounds. I think the dollhouse comment really makes a lot of sense, and the meticulousness and the craftsmanship that are shown, I think it kind of brings that to light. You know that this was put together perfectly. It was built like a dollhouse. I think anybody who paints miniatures or does anything in tabletop would be able to appreciate how much work was put into each and every model and how individual everything is.
I basically, and I totally agree with what you were saying. Just to add on, I basically think that any game that has literal art concept books come out about it deserves more praise than it gets. Like this game, I don't know if it's just Little Nightmares 2, but I'm pretty sure Little Nightmares 1 as well has art concept books. And they deserve it fully because it is a crazy, almost in my mind, it kind of looks like Tim Burton-esque like vibe going on, but imagine that but way more dark and body horror-y. At least that's my personal opinion. That might not be ring true with everyone else, but that's what I think. And I love the art and the music in this game. It's so well crafted and personal.
yeah, like the art is really something to behold. It's really something in and of itself, and of like horror. I mean, there have been aspects of tiny people in horror, but not quite like this. Not to this kind of fear extent, I think.
Mhm.
I think it really captures the imaginations of children and the fact that it's nightmarish to be small in a place you don't know. Everything is scary, you know. Not that I've ever been small. I'm a huge ass dude. Came out the womb 6 foot tall.
Oh my god.
No. But I don't know. We could all think back to times when we were kids and in a place you didn't know, and it was scary, you know? Like imagine losing your parents at a supermarket and you're just like, I don't know where I am, and someone tried to talk to me. Like it's scary. So that's this game, but everything is out to kill you, actually. I love that they really captured that essence. So with that being said, let's move on to features and content.
Features and content.
Man, I really hope no orphans listen to the show and heard me say, imagine losing your parents in a supermarket. Bad take. Don't listen to this podcast if you're.
We're gonna lose the Wayne Tech sponsorship.
Oh no! How can I afford such luxuries? So for features and content, if you guys don't know and you're new here, essentially it's where we throw everything else. It's where we throw the meat and potatoes of the podcast. It's just like anything we want to talk about with the game we throw here. So that being said, I'll leave it up to you guys. Where do you want to start with features and content if you have somewhere?
Okay. Since I've been doing a lot of dick writing, and this is one of my favorite games, I'll be the first person to throw out a critique.
Okay.
Although it's a small one. This mostly stands out when playing on mouse and keyboard, but since horror games, really, since the very first Resident Evil, something that has been a struggle in horror games is that the forced perspective really adds to a lot of what makes the game scary. But at the same time, with this being like you were saying, it's a 2.5D game. Sometimes there are platforms that don't quite line up perfectly straight, or there's an enemy that you need to avoid being seen by, but the angle is kind of difficult to get, and you'll end up losing or dying to small platform things, and it's not that big of an issue because checkpoints are plentiful and they're quick to get you back to them. But it is, it's an imperfection.
Yeah,
something that could be easier.
It's definitely a hot topic on a lot of forums online I learned about today.
Say there's like stairs that are winding, sometimes even I, after having played through the games for the umpteenth time, I'll end up walking off of a set of stairs because my perspective is a little off.
Exactly.
It's even not like mouse and keyboard. Sometimes you find that hard with controller, and it's like, the reason I think is because it's not just looking straight ahead. It's because the camera turns, right? So when you're going right, suddenly you're not going straight right anymore. You have to like angle yourself like another way because like it's weird to describe that camera feels like it's put in one spot in a room and rotates. You know what I mean?
That's the
Like,
dollhouse. Yeah, the dollhouse camera perspective. That's what we talked about with graphics. 100%. It is a
yeah.
very confusing thing to get used to at first, but once you get it, it's a lot easier. But there, like Devin said, there will be a lot of times where you will just fuck up, and not even because you meant to, not even because it's a skill issue, L plus ratio nerd. It's literally just because like the camera was weird, and that happens, and it can be incredibly frustrating. Which I went pretty adept today. I don't know why. I was on like a ADHD fucking binge, hyper fixated. I was super hyper fixated on doing good research for this game this morning, and one of the things I went to was Steam reviews, and like most of them were awesome. They're like, this game is so good. Like, holy shit, here's all the things that are good about them. And then like every 4 of them, you'd hit one that's like, the camera fucking sucks. Like, just so angry. Like 0 out of 10. I hate this fucking game. Like, it was just like, so clearly people talk about it, and it is a very valid critique. And I just want to alleviate you of feeling that it wasn't valid, because it definitely is.
I will say, to the bonus effect of it, it has almost led me to more horrifying times, just based on like for instance, I replayed this game today, and because of the camera, one thing was really hard to do in this chase scene against spaghetti fucking long arm janitor. And let me tell you, just trying to fit this thing into the crank before he got to me, like, because the camera like kind of twisted, gave me more of a heart attack than literally the actual he did for a minute. I'm like, oh my fucking god, I'm not gonna be able to do this. Fuck. And yeah,
I remember that
it's
scene.
it's almost frustrating, but like if it only takes you like a couple tries, it's fine. Like, I think, but when you're talking like 5 or 6 because of the camera, yeah, that's a little bit different, you know.
Definitely.
Yeah, like for the average player, for the avid gamer, it's not so much of a problem that it makes the game unplayable. If you are someone who doesn't play platforms very often, like I said, the checkpoints are plentiful. There's no like extra lives, and there's not a long like um, game over sequence. So you'll get right back into it, and it's very generous in allowing you to make mistakes and learn through trial and error.
100%. But that was the major complaint that I saw, so I just wanted to alleviate. Like, that was like the one that everyone was like, the fucking, you got to replay so many things because the camera isn't right.
Yeah,
and I was like, I don't know.
It's less like you're controlling someone in third person, and more like you're controlling like a remote control robot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would compare. I mean, I wouldn't compare it to like the early Resident Evils or whatever, because like those just feel terrible. Those feel awful. This is like, imagine if that was better.
Yeah. I mean, the tank controls in original Resident Evil almost add to the horror experience sometimes. Like I said, like it just,
can't say it.
dude, it's like sometimes trying to turn and then you go down a hallway and it literally turns that camera. Kid, it's scary. I get it, but yeah.
I got
Formative,
so mad trying to play Resident Evil, the original ones, that I was just like, I can't do it because of that shit. Like, I hate the camera control that much, but I love this game, so like clearly this is better.
Right?
I would argue that to this day, still in 2022, the most hated villain in horror gaming is the first zombie you encounter in the first Resident Evil game.
He started all of this.
That's right.
I'll die on that fucking hill. I think that another thing that we should talk about is the puzzles in this game, because like it is a platformer, but at its heart, it's also a puzzle game. And this is just like a personal thing. I don't think I ever found any of the puzzles like crazy difficult. Other than like there was this one where there was a noose above my head, and I didn't realize it was a noose, and the whole time I thought it was a light bulb because it just looked like it had an outline of a light bulb, and so I spent like a long ass time being like, why isn't that light bulb lit? And then it turned out to be a noose. But like puzzles are a huge part of this game. That if you're not interested in puzzles, or exploration or platforming, because it combines all 3 effortlessly, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
But the puzzles, I didn't think the puzzles were incredibly hard. I thought they were really well designed with the environment of you being a very small child in a very large place, and you having to figure out how to get from one place to another, because the world's not designed for you. Like, imagine you're a 7 foot tall man in any regular home. You're gonna bump your head on every doorway. It's the opposite of that. You're gonna have trouble lifting things. You're gonna have trouble getting through places. It's always gonna suck. So you got to find ways through that. And I think that the puzzles did a really good job of making it seem organic and fun.
Yeah. Not to mention they're like against, like, sometimes you're against the clock on these puzzles. You know, you have to figure stuff out while you're being chased or while you're being cornered, and it's in those moments that it really shows like your problem solving skills. I mean, like, there's one right answer and you better figure it out, because otherwise you're just gonna get fucking eaten. You know, that's this game. But
Did you have anything to say about the puzzles, though?
I think that the puzzles, like you were saying, none of them are incredibly hard. There are, I'd say it depends on what games you've played in your past, which puzzles you'll get stuck on, and which puzzles, you'll breeze right through. But the game does a good job of giving you enough information to work with without ever being patronizing. Like it doesn't make certain objects glow or tell you exactly how to do something. It'll be like, here's a door, here's a chair, and then it'll be like, you can drag objects. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe drag an object. Is there an object you can drag in the room?
Maybe look around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It never like tells you that you're stupid, and I think that's really nice, because a lot of horror games are either they'll hold your hand the whole time, or it's like you need a saw, so you need to turn around to see what you saw and grab the saw from your memory. It's like complete bonkers bullshit. In this game, there's a button, throw something at the button. There's something that needs to be balanced, so you balance it. It's all very cut and dry.
Right.
In the
really
same way it tells
respected
the
it.
story, it tells you how to do
Yeah.
the puzzle.
Yeah, I really respected it because of that. Honestly, like if it wasn't for the because like there are parts in this game that are frustrating that we talked about, like where you get stuck in the same loop because of a camera, or like because you're not understanding something. But like because the puzzles were so easy, and not so easy, because the puzzles were so comprehensible within like one or two tries, it made the whole process of playing the game less of a grind and more of a, oh, I just fucking did it wrong. I just gotta go back and do it really quick. Like
Yeah, like if you fuck up a puzzle in Little Nightmares and you go look up a guide, you're gonna have okay, that's how you do it, instead of, well, how was I supposed to figure that out?
Oh my god, and just like as a total throw, I watch Devin stream a lot because we're friends, and he also streams. Go check him out. But I've seen you play some horror games where there was literally no way that like it's like a path through like a maze that you just have to guess. It makes no sense, and there's no explanation, and there's no way you would get it unless it's pure chance. And like you got so angry, and I was like, that makes sense. Like I would too. And this game is not like that. This is the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, there might be. Yeah, I think there was maybe one puzzle I had a hard time with, and that's like your last encounter with like your first bad guy, the janitor. Like when you're in that last door with him, that got a little confusing to me. But that was about the only one. And this is one of those games where you're gonna constantly just try different things, because it's one of those things. In the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again. But it feels rewarding to try, like, because the like third time you generally try a different thing, that's probably the right answer. Like if you are having a hard time with any of them. So
Definitely, there's like 1 or 2 or 5 things you could try. It's not like you're gonna be at the same place for an hour and a half. Because like that's something that I, as a streamer, get really annoyed with. That I will just like go and ruin a game or ask chat or be like, hey, tell me how to do this, because I'm not gonna be stuck here for another hour. Like this is boring. I'm not having fun. And like this game does a really good job of balancing the fun, where there's 1 or 2 answers. You just figure it out eventually if you try something different.
right, it's like the puzzles you generally like would see in like horror movies. Those last second, split second decision kind of puzzles. Like I think it nails that feeling. Like honestly, with the puzzles, like, and I think if they're going for that, which I'm sure they are, like they nailed it perfectly. So
definitely. I also wanted to get into a couple little things about this game. This game does have 3 DLCs that each are about an hour long. The DLCs, I haven't played them personally, but I did read the descriptions of each of them, and I'll get into why it's important in a minute. But the DLCs are The Depths, The Hideaway, and The Residence. They're all in one package called The Secret of the Maw. And in that, you play another person who parallels Six's adventures. His name is the Runaway.
Kid. Oh, the Runaway.
Yeah, that's officially according to Wikipedia. That's what it's called.
Okay, that's the official one. Okay. No, I always thought it was just the kid.
Yeah, apparently his name is the Runaway, I guess. But he parallels Six's adventures, and I think that's really cool. I think it's a fun little DLC that you get to see, and the storyline ends up interluding with Six's in a really not so great way, which I'm not gonna spoil unless you guys are cool with it. On what do you guys think? Should we spoil it? But like say spoiler just in case.
I think maybe leave that.
I think if you haven't played it, it's worth leaving unspoiled.
Okay, I'll leave it unspoiled.
Just since it's the very end. Yeah,
this is a game that I recommend everybody who's listening does play. Like,
yeah,
a lot
it's
of
only like a 4-hour
inaccessible
experience.
Yeah, this is a very accessible game. Even if you're not an avid gamer, why are you listening to this? First of all, but if you're not an avid horror gamer either, this is still really accessible.
We're really creating a why are you listening to this montage?
That's right. Why are you even here?
Make a song out of it. Why are you listening to this?
I've been bookmarking all of them, and there's like 10 of them, bro. We've been
super cut.
Super cut. There's gonna be like a YouTube video five fucking months from now, and it's just like 10 minutes long, and being like, if you like COD, fuck you. Like it's gonna be fun, but no, I'm not gonna spoil it. But it is very. I actually didn't play the DLCs because I didn't know there were DLCs until today. I'm gonna go back and probably replay them, especially since it's Spooktober. But knowing the storyline, it's good. It's so good, and it ties in with the whole game as well. I just love that there's so much more to this game than meets the eye organically, and it's exactly the way that Devin said. Like you can pick up Little Nightmares and you can play it. And that's exactly what I did. It's like a 4-hour playthrough, super easy, super fun, it's super accessible. Or you can go back and grind and really learn and play the whole thing and be really invested in the world and the characters, and so much more of it gets opened up. It's a very organic exploratory experience to play it and really like love it, which I learned today through reading that was an option.
Yeah,
I didn't know that because I did the latter. I just played the 4-hour version, and you know what? I was still really happy with it.
Yeah, no matter if you beat or complete this game, you're gonna have a great experience with it. Like, I think it's worth it just to beat it and then complete it for like the smaller stuff afterward, actually. But that's just my personal kind of thing on that.
Definitely. Did anyone else?
I did want to talk about, which we for like gameplay wise, is there is like, along with puzzles and stuff, there is also some chase experiences in this game, you know, like where you're running away from things, and those, like, I mean, as equally as they are terrifying, is a couple of times they're like frustrating, because like, you know, you'll just trip on one thing, and then like it's scary the first like 3 times, but if you like play the same chase thing like 5 times, you know, of course it's less scary. But I still think they did an excellent job just making it seem so close, like every single time in those chases, like everything is you're just out of reach, you know, like you're always going to be slower than what's chasing you in this game, no matter like what, and it feels really good in those chase scenes, you know.
Definitely. I feel like it can't be a horror game without some crazy chase scene where you're just slightly slower than everything else around you. I'm
Right.
speaking from experience as someone that is literally playing only horror games this month and doesn't play a lot of horror games. Pretty much every one of them has that in it. And it is a trope, but it's a trope because it works. And they did this really well, but like we talked about earlier with the camera angle and the fact that sometimes the camera fucks up your platforming, it did fuck up my chase scenes a couple times. We're like, specifically, not just, I'm not spoiling. I mean, you're gonna get to it. Where you're running from the people chasing you in the dining hall. Yeah. I died on that level multiple times because I had no idea. And then the dollhouse camera came into play where I had no idea what was next. I turned a corner. I got stuck on a wall. I died. Like, and it was frustrating, but like it also was really, really scary up until that point where it was frustrating. So there is some bad parts about it, like we talked about already. But I think overall the chase scenes were really well done as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's scary till you memorize everything, and then you're like, up, down, left, right, and then you're like, fuck! So, write down that note.
Yeah, anything to add about that, Devin?
Yeah, I'd say that that chase scene particular that you're talking about is one of my favorites in like any game.
Mhm.
And I have personally gotten frustrated with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of those things where the the devs were kind of self-aware in that aspect, in that like the there are about three, and I've known because I fucked up so many times playing it. There's about three checkpoints throughout that whole chase because it's a pretty long chase sequence. But that there
Mhm.
are checkpoints in the middle of the chase sequences that keeps the
Yeah.
intensity high, that keeps the player from having time to get frustrated and lose their immersion and their excitement, and it gives them the opportunity to rectify their mistake as soon as possible. And that I think is excellent design.
Yeah, you don't got to start all the way over the second you mess up. I think that is a crazy. You don't see it in a lot of horror games. Horror games are incredibly punishing for a reason. I mean, people that play them are people that play horror games like to be punished. Let's just leave it at that. And
I won't fight that.
I bet. but like the fact that there is checkpoints like you were talking about is just like it's a change. Like there's not a lot of games that give you that amount of leeway, but I think it's because they know that it is a casual experience. It's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be always horror all the time, but it does really get under your skin with the horror and with the elements that it gives you. It's still creepy, it's still horror, but there is a casual experience to it as well. I think they did that really well.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, fuck, I keep pulling up the wrong thing. I'm sorry. That's my D&D character sheet. Don't worry about that. I was playing D&D before this. I think that's something else that I think is really interesting. Was that there's not just like these crazy, grotesque monstrosities in the world that you're in. Like because there's hella like there's the janitor, there's the chefs, there's the lady at the painted lady at the end, there's all the people in the dining room. There's a lot of grotesque monstrosities that are trying to kill you, but there's also these little creatures called gnomes in the game. They're like these small little tiny skittish creatures that either flee from you or passively observe you, and essentially they're just like little cute Easter eggs in the game, and it kind of takes away from the fact that it adds a little bit of whimsy to the game that I think is much. The game wouldn't be the same without them. Honestly, in my opinion, the game wouldn't be the same without the little gnome guys because like if you can get close to one, you can hug them, and I think that's cute too.
Yeah, I think there's a few fan theories on gnomes which I really like. A lot of them point to like they're supposed to be like almost like a spirit of children kind of thing, and that's why you pick them up and give them a hug. Like telling them it's gonna be okay, kind of thing. Because like,
Oh, we're just lying to kids now. Okay.
yeah, I know. As soon as but I mean, there's a lot of fucked up things in this game. Like, gotta have some kind of cuteness in it. Like,
I think it really distracts from the horror. I think it adds, and in some cases it adds to the horror, which I'm not going to get into. But like it distracts from the world that you're currently in. It provides a swift and needed release from it always being a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
this game makes you need a hug, and it gives hugs.
100%. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to? Because I have like 12 other things I want to add, and I can just list them off, and we can talk about them, or you guys can talk about your whatever you want to talk about.
Something to add to what you were just saying is that sort of cuteness aspect, like that there are things in Little Nightmares that are quaint. Like on the shelves, there's little knickknacks, there's fun little jars, and like silly sort of haunted mansion style paintings. Little Nightmares isn't a horror game like Silent Hill, where it's it covers these really deep logical issues, or like Resident Evil, where it's an action shooter. It's Little Nightmares is sort of a haunted storybook, right? Like Little Nightmares has a different vibe than a lot of other horror games, and I think that's why it is as beloved as it is by the community, is because it's really certain of its identity, and like we've been saying, every part of the game works to create that identity.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you just said. That's a great overview of Little Nightmares as a whole. I feel like.
Cool. Feel free to quote me on that.
I already bookmarked it. So yeah, you're gonna get a quote, buddy, friend, pal,
Guy.
dude. So I think another thing that is really interesting is just the fact that there is darkness in the game. Like you're not just a kid trying to survive, and I think that's important. You are, but you aren't, because there are parts in the game that get really dark for 6 that are kind of spoilers. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, come back in like 2 minutes. But like there are parts that are dark. Like you're not just a kid trying to survive. You also have darkness inside you. Like 6 has a hunger that is prevalent throughout the game. Occasionally, at certain points of the game, you get hunger pains, and you have to do maybe some not so exquisite things to satisfy that hunger. And at the same time, there also was other parts with Six's darkness that you can see, like where she escapes the kids in the cages and just doesn't look back at all. I think that's where you can talk a lot about how the game has its own interpretations. You can define your own interpretations, but like whether I liked it or not, I only saw 6 as like a survivor. Like she was just trying to get out, but like that still led her to make some really fucking terrible, like bad humanitarian choices. You know what I mean?
Well, at the same time, I don't think you could grab a group of children and lead them through like people like the janitor and a whole bunch of chefs when you're trying to lead like 20 kids out. It's one of those things, it's
It's a dark choice, but
and at the end, let's just say she probably had all the possibility to, but it's one of those, yeah. So I guess there's room for interpretations in a lot of ways in this game, which goes in line with there not being any words in this game. So, interpret it how you will.
I interpreted her as having like a survival, like her over above everyone else, which I'm fine with, but like it was kind of hard because like in reality, like you're a child and you're witnessing definitely these other children being eaten. Like you are not trying to help them, and I think that that's such an interesting concept because like most games try to make you feel good, even if they're horror games, they still try to have like little silver linings, and this game really doesn't give it to you most of the time. It's just like, nah, like you just leave them, fuck them, I think that's interesting anyways.
Like as much as 6 is sort of a silent protagonist, like an insert of the player character, they don't leave 6 as this sort of sterile thing that exists within the world. 6 is part of the world. The world is cruel and cold and indifferent and violent. And there are times where 6 needs to be cruel, cold, indifferent, and violent in order to live. It's not about right or wrong. It's about attempting to, like you were saying, survive in a world that demands that of her.
100%. Again, quoted. Hashtag quoted. That's basically what I wanted to get across, is that while it is a 4-hour horror game that you could probably sit through and play through and figure out and have a good time with, there are some, if you look into it, some actual like philosophical and morality questions that you get from this game, which was like, it surprised me, I guess, was all I was saying, because you don't usually get all this packed to do a game like this, I would say, right? You get like a Resident Evil first-person shooter where the zombie has a huge ass or something, That's at least that's what I usually see. I don't know. What do you guys look up? But I agree entirely with what you said. Another thing that I know, it's just like me being like, another thing I want to talk about, but I think that the overall storyline was just really well done, and that the ending is incredibly wild, and that's all I'm going to say about that. I just want to hear someone echo chamber that back to me, because I thought the ending caught me by surprise. It was wild.
Yeah, the ending and the way the ending is presented is, it just adds to that purposefulness.
Yeah, basically, right at the end of chapter 4 to like chapter 5, which is, there's only 5 chapters in this game, but like, that's just that the end of chapter 4 also threw me for a fucking loop, and you'll wonder why. Like the because the whole entire thing with hunger is all I'm gonna say. Like, it relates to hunger, and it's gonna make you question why the fuck that happened. Like, and you know, it makes you question not. It makes you question like the humanity of your character.
Definitely, it makes, and like that's the thing where you can either just ignore that and be like, oh, okay, that happened, or you can like really like think about it and be like, what? Why did that happen?
It didn't need to happen. Was
Yeah,
the
Jesus. Yeah. I'm just gonna briefly, because we're we're approaching the hour mark. We're above an hour, so I just want to run through a couple more things, then we'll get to the end of this. Just a couple of things that I thought were just interesting little takes about this game. So this game was so well received that they created a mobile app titled Very Little Nightmares. It debuted in April 2019 and was released in May 2019 to iOS and Android. And it basically acts as a prequel to Little Nightmares 1 and 2. And then after that, Little Nightmares 2 came out. It was announced in 2019 and got released in 2020. And it featured a new playable character called Mono. It also brought back Six as a controllable character. The studio did claim that this would be the last game in the franchise, but they may use Little Nightmares as like a world setting, which I am kind of disappointed by. I haven't played the second one yet, but I'd like to see more things involving this world because it's really interesting. And I was just wondering if you guys had any thoughts about those things. The prequel, if you played the prequel, talk about it, or if you played the second one, you can briefly talk about it.
Well, I never played Very Little Nightmares. I will say I've heard speculation that the protagonist in Very Little Nightmares has been theorized to not be Six, so that's interesting. And I do hope that there is at least DLC for Little Nightmares 2 because just like the first game, the ending it took my heart and absolutely obliterated it.
I remember that. Yeah, I watched that. I watched your. I'm not gonna give away what happened, but I watched your reaction to what happened, and yeah.
Yeah, I needed a moment after that. That shit hit.
Yeah. Little Nightmares 2 is like, I mean, in regards, it's a superior game to like the first one. I think it takes like what's already great about like the first one and just amplifies it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I haven't played it yet. I've watched it. I watched Devin play it, obviously, but I
Yeah.
haven't played it. So
I was gonna say, yeah, one of those that's definitely worth the play.
definitely. To continue on, just for the sake of time, they also announced in 2017 a TV show based on Little Nightmares, which would be insane. I don't know if they ever did it, but it was supposed to be involve Anthony and Joe Russo, who actually directed 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. So I don't know if that's actually happening or what happened, but in 2017 they mentioned it at one of the game cons, and there's been no mention since. But there could be a TV show coming out about this movie or this game, which would be wild. I think personally, or ruin it. One of the two. I'm not sure which.
Yeah, it depends on who makes it.
I mean, like I said, the guys that are making it made part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it would be directed by a guy named Henry Selick. Henry Selick? I don't know who that is. That guy.
I have to look into that. Yeah.
I had him hyperlinked, and then I took off the hyperlink because I'm an idiot. And also just in media about this game. The game also did have a comic, 4-issue tie-in comic that was written by John Shackelford and penciled by Aaron Axelvich. It was published by Titan Comics. I'm not sure what else they've made, but that's who was making it. Basically, 2 issues were released physically and also digitally, and then the comic ended up being canceled. But you can still purchase the first 2 issues in one book. So that's cool, at least I guess. I'm super interested in comics, so I'd be interested in seeing like what if it explains anything, if there's like more to the world, if it's just like art. Even if it's just art, the art in this game is worth picking up, I think, honestly.
Right. I think I don't know who's going to make the movie or show or whatever if they do. But if I'm being biased, there's only one person in my mind who can make it. And if Guillermo del Toro made a Little Nightmares TV show, I swear to God. Like, could you imagine that? Like,
What are the odds, though? What are the odds that
Guillermo
del Toro?
Pinocchio, and it was fantastic. So
he almost made a Silent Hill game.
So, like, I swear, I think it would be absolutely perfect, or someone who could make it on that level. I just don't see anyone who could almost like make an atmosphere that would quite convey the way this game feels besides someone like that. And that's nothing. That's random speculation bullshit.
Here's the petition. We get on petitions.org. We get Guillermo del Toro to make a Little Nightmares show. Anybody? Yeah. This podcast starts it. We get hella famous. We spend all our money on hookers and blow. Thank you. That's the end of this. Thanks, guys. See you never, because we're ODing. That's not funny. But yeah, no, I just thought that was a really interesting concept that like this game was so beloved that they had that much media spin-off. Like there's not a lot of games that get that much media spin-off. Usually an indie game gets made, it gets played, that's it. Maybe a second one gets made. But this one had like a comic book, a TV show, like, you know, or potentially a sequel and a mobile app and then a mobile port coming this year. Like that's a lot. That's a lot of love for this one game, and I think that the reason that happened is just because it is a wonderfully crafted experience all the way through.
Yeah, I would recommend you guys probably play this game in one shot. Honestly, it's a perfect one. Like, just don't take I took a break today, and it kind of ruined the experience for me a bit. When I did, but the first time I played it in one shot, and I think it's just one of those games that deserves just one. Even if you do 4 or the 7-hour one, just find the time to do it in one shot, and you'll be satisfied with this game, I feel.
Definitely. I think I have one more, just for content, the last piece of content that I want to throw in here for content and features that I just thought was a really interesting fun fact. When this game was originally made, they announced it in 2014, and it was under the title Hunger. And it was supposed to be released for PlayStation 4 exclusively. But then guess what happened? Do you guys have a guess what happened? Just wondering. Motherfucking Hunger Games came out.
Oh my god.
So they're like, shit, we gotta change the title.
Name, yeah.
to make it easier to look up. So they changed the title to Little Nightmares after that, and to make it easier for SEO. And I think that's really funny. That was just a cute little, like, they must have been so pissed though. Could you imagine like working your ass off to make a game, and then like Hunger Games comes out and Katniss Everdeen's like, the Hunger Games. You son of a bitch. I'll show you a female protagonist. 666. Party with the devil. Anyways. Let's move on to movement and controls.
Movement and controls.
It's pretty simple. It's I mean, we talked about the dollhouse camera nonstop. So dollhouse camera, stealth environment, stealth. Do you guys have anything to say about movement controls?
Yeah, actually, it's like, although we talk like sometimes the controls can be counterintuitive in this game, is like it goes along with the feeling of this game. Like you don't quite move fast enough. It feels like you move at the perfect pace in this game, which is like slow, but like not too slow. You know, like you're just running just fast enough to get through the puzzles right. You're moving just fast enough to get out of enemy reach if you do everything right. That, like, you know, it causes your character to make the right moves because you're not too fast to get through it, like, easily enough, but you're not too slow that it feels impossible, you know? So I think, like, just speed-wise, it fits the movement very well in this game.
What about you, Devin? What do you think about the movement and controls aspect?
Well, I think something that you and I share is the idea that Little Nightmares isn't necessarily a stealth game. It's a hiding game.
Hide and seek.
A lot of people, yeah, hide and seek. A lot of people they like to use the term cat and mouse, and when people say that, they think like Tom and Jerry, right? Like different but equal. But it's not like that in this. It's like real cat and mouse, whereas a real cat is faster, stronger, and probably going to have a lot of fun killing you. can't do shit to it.
Yeah, that's exactly what Little Nightmares feels like, and you got to use your wits and the environment to try to not be the mouse in that circumstance.
Yeah, like, it's just perfectly feeling, honestly, like getting away from these enemies just in that nick of time, just to make you feel like you had just that millisecond, enough to get away is like perfect every single time. Just
And most
adds
of the
to that
time,
fear.
you won't get away. At least in my experience, I didn't get away the first couple times. Like so, like
Mhm.
you still get the experience of getting absolutely fucking deaded by by the bigger creatures at the same time. So at least that was my experience because maybe I suck, but it definitely felt it had similar mechanics to a lot of other platformers I played where you had to balance on things, you had to make sure you didn't fall, but then it also added stealth incorporation and the 3D camera in a 2D environment was pretty cool. It was very new to not when I played it. It was new. It hasn't been new since I've been playing a lot more games because in all reality, I played this game a while ago, but I played a lot of other games since then that had mechanics that were similar that I can't help but feel were almost based off this game, maybe. So,
Yeah.
with that being said, let's move into closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts.
So closing thoughts, we always run through the same categories. So with that being said, guys, where do you guys put this on a replayability factor? Like, do you think it's replayable? Why not? We'll start with Devin.
I, as someone who has played through Little Nightmares multiple times, I'd say it's something I play at least once a year. It's not too long of a game, and playing through it is satisfying enough every time that it's almost like a ritual for me at this point. You know, if you're the type of person who has a specific type of movie or a set of movies that you like to watch every year around Halloween, Little Nightmares is going to be in that part of your brain if you think of video games in the same way.
That's fair. Tom, what do you think?
I'd say it's pretty replayable just to get like the completionist kind of aspect of things. There's a lot of collectibles. So if that's like your kind of jam, like, I mean, I think it's worth more than just one playthrough just for like, because it's such a nice, like, short experience that it's like, sitting down and watching like a good horror movie. It's a good experience you can get through in like an evening or like right around this time of year. And it's a fun little game to play that you don't have to sink a lot of time into. But as a person who played it twice, I played this game today, honestly, like, because I was like, I just want to be fresh for this game. So it's like really nice that I could just sit down and play it right before the podcast, be fresh for it. Like, that was just a good feeling because some games we play, like, they take over 40 freaking hours, like, so it's nice to have like that short good experience. It doesn't overstay its welcome by any means either. So
100%. I think I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum where I only played this game once and I didn't play the DLC. So, and I'm just being completely honest with that. I've said it the whole podcast. I didn't buy the DLC because I didn't have the money at the time. That being said, I could probably buy it now, and I would be willing to play it again for the DLC. I agree with both of the things you guys said, but I also want to state that if you played this game even once and you only played the 4-hour version or whatever 5-hour version without the DLC, it's still a really good playthrough. That's the only experience I had with it. I didn't play the DLC. I didn't do any research before today. I just played the game like a year ago, and you know what? I'm still thinking it's a really good game, and I really enjoyed it. So that speaks a lot. Usually, like if people like DLC comes out, people want to immediately play it. I had no, I was like, yeah, cool. I played the game, and I really enjoyed it. But I think that for a lot of people, it adds so much more, and like they said, there's a lot of replayability involved. So that's my thoughts on the replayability, anyways.
yeah, I mean, as far as like general replayability, it's not like a rogue or roguelike game where it's going to change every single time you play. It's the same experience that you did the last time. But I think in that way, like, at least it's not like, your favorite game that's like 30 hours long. It's like a good 4-hour experience. That's why I think it's replayable in a sense. Like, if this was over like a 16-hour game, let's say, like, I could probably see myself playing this for the story like once, but since it's so short, it leaves a lot up to interpretation. That's why I think it's replayable.
I think another factor that makes it replayable is the little Easter eggs that you can find and the achievements you can get while playing it. That seems to be a really popular thing that people like to do with this game as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, where would you guys put this on a fun factor scale, 1 to 10? Either one of you, throw it out.
Devin, why don't you go? No.
I mean, for me, it's a solid 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
I mean,
from beginning to end, I loved this game since the very first day that I picked it up.
Well, you're biased. No kidding.
I am absolutely biased.
I'm kidding. I put it at I had like an 8. I had an 8 with this game. I thought it was the perfect length. That's really what made me love it so much. If it was 5 hours longer, I would have been a little more frustrated with it than it was. But knowing that it was so short, it was just like it doesn't really matter because like even if I die, like man, I still only spent like 4 hours on this game and had a good time with it the entire time. The story is good, the world is good, the art is good, the music is good, platforming's all right. It's a good game. So an 8, a solid 8 for me.
Yeah, I'd probably put in that nice 8.5, 9 range. It's a perfect experience, especially with what it's going for. It's perfectly executed for what it wants to come across as, and there's not a lot of frustrating parts in this game. So I think you're going to have a good experience whether you're a hardcore gamer or if you're a very casual gamer. I could see people who don't even play video games that much really enjoying this experience of a game.
Definitely. Did you guys have a favorite or least favorite part of the game?
Yeah, this is kind of spoiler heavy, but my favorite part of the game was cutting off the damn janitor's arms. Fuck you and your goddamn spaghetti fucking noodle arms. I cut them off of you, bitch. Good part.
And your least favorite?
I mean, honestly, just probably getting stuck on those chase scenes, and not because it's if you accidentally jump at a quarter second off and it's you've replayed it 5 times, that just it gets a little frustrating just to rewatch the whole entire thing again. But it's not as much as a frustration thing. I'd barely even count that as anything,
Mm-hmm. And to piggyback off of that, yeah, I'd say my least favorite part is that there are a couple areas where certain platforms can be difficult to jump to. And the perspective doesn't help, as I mentioned before.
Yeah.
And I would say my
try picking your favorite. Now go ahead. I dare you.
My most favorite thing is the one and only moment that 6 is outside of the maw. The sense of scale and the world building that they present you in just a 30-second scene, and all your character is doing is climbing the ladder. So much of the world and so much of the personality of the art style, so much of everything that makes the soul of this game up is presented to you right there. It's just laid out bare in front of you, and it's kind of an awe-inspiring moment.
Yeah, honestly, oh man, it's really cool. Honestly, seeing the outside of it for the first time, because I thought you were on. Yeah, it's kind of a ship. We'll just say that it's kind of a ship. I'm not exactly what to call the maw. It's it's something else entirely. It's really cool, and the end ties into because that's middle of the game, but seeing it at the end too is really crazy as well. So
definitely, I think my favorite part is definitely actually the scene we're watching now. The kitchen scene was definitely my favorite part out of everything in the game, because I feel like it really really sold the game fully for me. It really got everything about the game I was looking for, with the stealth environment, the puzzle solving, and the horror aspects. All of it was combined perfectly into what I believe the kitchen scene was. You trying to escape the chefs, and like it's also one of the first times that you get to actually see somebody from this world and what they actually look like up close, and it really drives the body horror children nightmare vibe home very well. It was just, I think it was the most perfectly executed part of the entire game. My least favorite, I would have to go with Tom, was definitely the just getting stuck on random bullshit and chase scenes really pissed me off. I can't avoid it. It did. Or getting caught when you definitely were hiding. That was another part that really bothered me. Like there's no way you saw me, my guy. Like, fuck you and your tubby little hands. So those are the two things that really were my least favorite. But I think that overall, it's hard almost to feel like that is a negative, because the game itself is just so good. But you gotta come up with something, right?
Yeah.
Is there any games that this reminds you of?
Hard to kind of point to one. Let me think here for just a second.
I got one specifically.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Limbo.
Mm-hmm.
Like pretty decently reminds me of Limbo.
Yeah.
Which so happens to be the game we're talking about next week, by the way.
Right. It's a nice experience of a game too.
Another banger.
It definitely is. Small child, creepy world, horror, platformer, Limbo. Like that's what it reminds me of. So if anyone else has anything though, that was mine. Or I guess if we're talking about like camera wise, just like the only game that camera wise it reminded me of was Little Big Planet. So, but not aesthetic.
Yeah. Little Big Planet got mixed with a Rob Zombie movie. Here you go. Like,
yeah, no, good idea. Actually, no, writing that down.
Okay, we're gonna mix Little Big Planet, Muppets, Rob Zombie, and Guillermo del Toro in a one fucking movie. And call it good.
We got to actually go create the petition about the Guillermo del Toro thing. Wait, who directed Kill Bill? Quentin Tarantino, right?
That was Tarantino, yeah.
Let's get Tarantino in on this too. Let's create opposing fucking petitions, and we'll see which one does better.
I don't know. I don't think we should give Tarantino a movie about a barefoot protagonist.
I don't know. I don't get that reference.
Oh God, who's the dude who did Fast and Furious? Let's get him. Michael Bay.
Oh my God.
Oh my.
Fuck! I totally forgot what we were talking about. Shit. Game reminds you of either one of you two. You got one?
Specifically, like it kind of. Recently, I've played Alien Isolation, and just the feeling of like how you sneak in that game and you're like trying to avoid something all the time. It's not as much puzzle element, and yeah, it's more of a 3D space, but it still gives that sense of horror. Something is following you and you're not powerful, like you're not supposed to be able to defeat until like kind of end. And like if you play that game on easier difficulties, you have an easier time, but still like it's one of those things that everything is more powerful than you, and you really don't have that much power to defeat it. So it's really your mind to kind of solve these horrifying puzzles. So
yeah, I mean, I didn't understand it when you first started saying it, but that made quite a bit of sense by the end.
Yeah,
I'd say if I were to give like the most succinct description of like the games it reminds me of, it's like if you took the classic like NES era platform games, or like your typical Mario, or other Nintendo platformer, and put it in a blender with Amnesia.
Yeah,
you would get Little Nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one no one said: Little Nightmares 2. Idiot.
It's just like that. Oh my God. Gamered.
L plus ratio. Plus no maidens. No, but I agree with what you're saying. Definitely. And then lastly, how much would you recommend this game, and who would you recommend it to?
I would definitely recommend this game to just about anyone, just because it's such a nice short like experience. Anyone that's into horror, like any kind of horror movie fan, not even necessarily, like I said, a gamer kind of person who's only in the gamer mentality. Like if you're looking for a nice, just something different yet horrifying and gratifying to play, this is a good game for you.
Devin?
Yeah, I would say, like we've been talking about, the puzzles are challenging yet accessible. The game is very forgiving with its checkpoints, and it will point you in the right direction without being patronizing. The graphics and the scares aren't overly gory, so you could recommend this to your friends that are a bit more squeamish or that don't play horror games more often. I agree with Tom. This title is so accessible and so well put together that I'd recommend it to anybody. Like Little Nightmares, as much as I can say that anything is perfect, like nothing is. Little Nightmares knows exactly what it is, and it gives you exactly what it means to. And in my eyes, that makes it a perfect experience.
Yeah, I think you essentially covered anything I wanted to say. That's 100% what I was gonna say too. Pretty much, just like it's for everybody, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a good game, so just check it out. It's accessible. It's easy. It's not easy. It's fun and it's scary and it's all the things you want it to be in the right time frame. It does a really good job of being what it is. So yeah. All right. Well, before we end, let's go ahead and ask our guests. Hey, Devin, if people want to find you on the internet, where can you be found?
I can be found on just about any platform. It's going to be Damon_Devin. More than likely, you'll find me live on Twitch. Otherwise, I upload YouTube content occasionally. Every now and again, I remember that I have an Instagram. And when I'm up at 4 in the morning, I post something cringy on Twitter.
How about you, Tom?
You can find me at Tom Dykers Tattoos on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Or Anchor 13 Tattoo as well. That is the name of my tattoo parlor. You can always hit me up about indie games and video games too. If you guys want to come meet me in real life, I'll be at Twin Cities Con in Minneapolis this month. So that's November 10th through 12th, I think. And I'll be there, I think, the 11th and 12th. So if you want to come actually meet me in person and have some fun, I'd be more than happy to see you there. So
I'd love to meet Tom IRL.
Right? Yeah.
We all know each other.
Right?
Right.
I ruined the immersion. My bad. Again, I guess we hadn't really talked about this fully. Maybe we could do like a block roast thing there or something. If you guys want to meet up there, we could do some stuff. But I probably will be there too. My name is Sean is Ginger. You can find me everywhere. That's SEAN. Is a Ginger, all one word. I stream full time again. I'm a full time unemployed streamer on Twitch, so come support me and pay my rent. Thanks. I also make content on every single platform under the same name. Sean is a Ginger. So, and if you guys are ever wondering, all of our links will be in the show notes. You can definitely check us out from there. And if you want to support the show and help us continue making cringy content, you can purchase the game from the show notes as well. It does give a kickback to the show. Full disclosure, it's just a couple cents, but it does keep the lights on. Now, Block Roast Podcast is a live podcast. It does stream to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch every Tuesday between, we're live when we're live. Most of the time, it's like between 10:30 and 11 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you want to see our pretty faces and watch the games we were talking about, you can see us there. Otherwise, you can find us on every platform. Speaking of platforms, don't forget to rate us on every single platform. 5 stars really does help more than you think, push us out to a wider audience, and be able to give us money, which we desperately need. If you're a developer that wants to talk to us about your game, please send us an email. Our email is blockrospodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's blockrospodcast@gmail.com. And if you want us to talk about a specific game, please reach out to us on any social, Block Roast Podcast, or at our email, which I already stated, blockroastpodcast@gmail.com. Next week, we'll be talking about Limbo, which is a horror platformer involving children. Sounds familiar, huh, guys?
Yeah, no doubt. I think we have a theme going for this month, but hey, it's horror month, so
it's Spooktober. Opening music is 8-Bit Fun by the Heatley Bros. And as always, guys, Block Roast Podcast is a Lost Cause media production. We'll catch you next week, and until then, bye.
Bye.
Say bye, Devin.
Bye, Devin.
Okay.
Lost Cause Media.